Hello and welcome to this YouTube video for Abrsm Grade 5 Violin. This is A1, La Follia by Arcangelo Corelli. I'll begin by doing a slow performance and please play along with me. It'll keep you in time hopefully and in tune hopefully. And if you stumble, you can probably join back in, find your way back in, and this will boost your confidence, allow you to know that you can get from beginning to end. Should make life easier for you. And then we'll discuss the finer points of the music, including some of the historic references to the playing styles of the time, which may change your approach to the way you play it. And then I'll do a performance with a pre-recorded piano accompaniment. So I'll count 3 and then begin with a very slow version of this. 1, 2, 3. At the period when this was composed, probably somewhere in the late 1600s, Violins were slightly different than the instrument which you're probably playing. The neck was slightly shorter. The interior of the box was a little bit different. It made the violin sound a little bit nasal and a little bit quieter. It wasn't quite as strident as the modern instruments are. And the bow was also different. The upper half of the bow was rather lighter and had what was called a swan head on it. And you can find it by Googling a Baroque bow. You'll see what I mean by that. I could have done this. I have a Baroque bow here, but I decided to use a modern bow rather than intimidate people thinking they might have to get a Baroque bow. So the styles were also very different. They didn't have any pencils, so they had a sort of code they followed. Now, we don't have to be too fussed about this code because the different courts in Europe had different traditions and different violinists did things differently as they do today. So there wasn't much difference there. Let's look at some of the things though. They probably didn't use much vibrato. So I would suggest that if you use any at all, that you limit it. Because the bow was lighter at the top end of it, it was trickier to sustain notes. So the tradition was simply to let the note decay, let it diminuendo as it gets to the end of a long note. Don't try and sustain the sound. When the music was moving by leap, that is, with an interval in between the two notes, the note tended to be shorter. When it's moving by step, that is, one step at a time, like A, B, C, D, E, then it would tend to be longer, but it was never completely legato because the Baroque bow always had a slight articulation in it. The dynamics, one tended to follow the height of the notes. So as you see the notes going up in pitch, you might want to get louder. And then when they come down in pitch, you might want to relax a little bit. And that was a way of shaping the phrases. And so the composers didn't write much in the way of dynamics in the original. I see this, the editor here has put a dynamics in, and you can follow these. But you might want to simply follow this sort of sense of as the notes get higher, get more excited, and as they get lower, relax a little bit. The trills tended to start from the upper note, sometimes from the note underneath. They seldom lasted for the whole note. So if you have a dotted crotchet trill, as you have in the third bar, I wouldn't trill all the way through that note. I would let the last quaver in that note be without a trill. Now, the editor has put a sort of trill all the way through this piece. I would disagree with that, but that's just my own personal view, and I could be completely wrong about that. But I wouldn't trill the whole way through the note. So, if we're looking now at bar one, it starts in second position. Now, second position was an unusual position for a Baroque player. They did sometimes play in two positions at once, first position and second position, but they seldom chose second position as a place to play. They might find it convenient simply to move their fingers up a little bit and find themselves in second position, but I would suggest that you simply play the opening here in first position, including open E strings. I don't think that would be a problem. But don't worry about these sorts of codes because there will be no Baroque police at your exam. So you can do whatever you think sounds better and leave the decision up to you. And just for an example, bar 2, the C sharp, you would let that note diminuendo a little bit, just decay. That would be in the style of the time. When we get to variation 1, the notes are all moving by leap, so they'd be slightly short, except the last note in the bar, which would be longer because it's only a step above the next note, and the same for each bar. So it's going to give a little bit of contrast. It's mainly short and then long at the end of the bar. It changes slightly in bar number 22, where the fourth and fifth note of the bar are moving by step. But we don't need to be too fussed about all these things. And if you get fed up with it and get bored, well, just do what you want, really. I think as long as it sounds interesting, that's all Arcangelo Corelli, I think, was probably interested by. And now, if we look at variation 2, this is where we're going slightly more rapidly. So I would suggest that the first note would be short, the next 3 notes would be long, and the next note would be short, in the same pattern all the way through. And when you get to the long note, just let it decay. We have a change of rhythm in bar number 41. And I would suggest that in this triplet, the second note of the triplet, for the first 2 beats you make short. So it's like a piano slur. It's slur, short, single bow, slur, short, single bow, like that. But then at the end of the bar, the last note would be longer because it's moving by step into the next note. And the same pattern goes on here all the way through this, and just follow the code a bit. Variation 3, the tune is basically at the top of the instrument, and the 5 notes after that are just an accompaniment. So think of the tune as being the first chord in the bar, and try and make that into some sort of tune. And we have a change of rhythm again in bar number 62, and it might be worth pointing those triplets a little bit, just to make them sound a little bit chirpier, a bit perkier, and just interesting to listen to. Now, in bar number 64, I think it is, can't read it, 61, 2, no, bar number 63, the second beat has a minim underneath it to sustain. Now, I would change that, and I would make that minim into a dotted crotchet, so the last note in the bar is simply an open D, and then the unison note between the G string and the D string. If in the exam you find yourself that that's terribly out of tune, come off one of the notes, probably come off the open D, and adjust the pitch of your second finger, or play the open D, doesn't really matter. But it's not good to hear it sounding, it will sound pretty horrible, like, doesn't sound very good. So the variation 4, it's quite perky. This is a little bit of virtuoso variation, it's going a little bit faster. And try again in shape. Now you'll see that I'm playing this in first position basically and extending my fourth finger to reach the C's. Your hand might be too small, in which case simply play it in second position. It's not a big deal. But if you have a big hand, the players of the time, if they had a big hand, would probably have played the whole thing basically in first position, but essentially they're playing between first and second because their fourth finger would be in second position. So now I'll do a performance with the piano and see what it sounds like.